Hello and welcome to my channel, and here is my review of Brightburn, one of my anticipated movies of the year. I'm so looking forward to watching this movie, mainly because of its premise, the concept, the idea behind the story of it's basically Superman, but what if Superman chose the path of evil? What if he decided to kill humanity instead of defend humanity? I just really like that idea. So we've got Brightburn, directed by David Yarovsky. I think that's how you pronounce his surname. Apologies if it's incorrect. It was also produced by James Gunn and written by his cousin Mark Gunn and his brother Brian Gunn. And this movie is also part of a new genre, which is superhero horror genre. So I was really looking forward to this film. Like I said, it's such an interesting premise, you know, an interesting concept and idea. It was one of my anticipated movies of the year. Unfortunately, for me, it doesn't quite deliver what it was that this movie was pitching. You know, the premise, the ideas that this movie was sort of promising, pitching to us in the trailers. You know, it just doesn't quite deliver on that. And for me, that was just a little bit disappointing. But at the same time, I also quite enjoyed this film. Basically, what I wanted, or what I was expecting to see from this movie, and what I really wanted to see, was this character's downfall of Brandon Breyer. I wanted to see this child who was adopted by these parents, played by Elizabeth Banks and David Denman. I really wanted to see this character's downfall step by step, the sort of the mechanisms that trigger this character's downfall, and sort of, you know, its experiences from within school, and all of that. I thought it was going to really dig deeper and delve deeper into all of that. And for me, it really just sort of skimmed past it all. And one of the really big triggers, really, that really sets this character off down this path of evil, you know, horror and destruction, is the ship. The ship that he arrives in to Earth. This ship just starts talking to him all of a sudden one night. And even though I sort of liked the way it played out, it was sort of creepy and intense. The fact that they used this ship as a mechanism to trigger something in this character to go, right, I'm gonna just turn evil now and kill anyone who pisses me off, basically, or, you know, does something that I don't agree with. For me, that was just a really weak idea. I didn't really like the whole idea of this ship being the trigger, you know, that mechanism that triggers this character's descent into evil. I didn't expect it either. From what I can remember, it wasn't in the trailers, not from what I can remember anyway, and I just didn't expect it to go into that direction. I really thought it was going to be a little bit more grounded, perhaps, and sort of like the reasons to why Brandon Breyer chooses the path that he does is because of these real life experiences growing up, you know, as a child, you know, and his experiences through school and all that. That was what I really sort of was expecting, and we didn't quite get that. But you still got those mechanisms, those triggers, other than the ship, sort of that sets him off. So someone does something that he doesn't like, and that is a reason then to why he decides to sort of kill that particular person or whatever. And so they're there, but it just really rushed and just sort of skims past it all. So all of these decisions that Brandon Breyer makes doesn't quite feel real enough or natural enough. And so you're sitting there thinking, you're just doing this for the sake of having this really gory horror moment during this film, because this is a superhero horror movie. So as a result of the movie sort of just really skimming past the character's decisions, and like with Brandon Breyer's character, you know, the decisions that he makes sort of just feeling all of a sudden, and sort of just like, you know, doesn't really have that much of a reasoning behind the decisions other than the fact that the ship just decides to talk to him one night. It just sort of really lacks the emotional weight that I felt this film was aiming for, but just didn't achieve. It really lacked that emotional punch that this film, I felt, really wanted, and it lacked that. It lacked the emotional weight as a result of just sort of really skimming past sort of one of the main characters, which is Brandon Breyer, you know, and his decisions, the decisions that he makes and the choices that he makes, it just felt a little bit empty, and as a result lacked that emotional weight. And so I was a little bit disappointed by that. But that being said, there were moments in this film which I did feel like they plucked on the heartstrings. Not quite pulled on heartstrings, but there were moments in which I thought were quite emotional. And I think that's because I could see what they were trying to do. And a lot of that is down to the relationship between Brandon Breyer and his mother and his father. And mainly his mother, played by Elizabeth Banks. The highlight for me was Elizabeth Banks playing the mother. She was very, very good in this film. When it comes to performance, she really soaked her horror and her fear and the love that she had for this child that they adopted, that they found in the woods one night. Because what you find out about this couple, played by Elizabeth Banks and David Denman, that they're trying for kids basically, but they find it difficult. They've been unsuccessful in having children naturally. So one night, after the ship crashes, they find this baby and they adopt this baby. And that part of the story, that couple's desperate attempt to want to have children, and then all of a sudden they are gifted with this baby, but it doesn't quite go the way they want it to. I really liked that. I found it to be very emotional. It sort of helped add a certain amount of emotional weight to this movie. And it's that aspect of the story that I felt really sort of gave this movie a heart and to some degree some emotional weight. So I'm not saying that this film was completely devoid of emotion and heart. It isn't, but that's mainly because of that one aspect of the story. It's that one aspect of the story involving Tori and Kyle Breyer, the couple who adopt this baby that have crash landed in the woods from space, and sort of their attempt to want to have children and to have this family. And they're finding it difficult to have that, and then all of a sudden they are gifted with this baby boy from out of space. And so they did a really good job when it comes to those particular characters and the relationship breakdown throughout the story between Elizabeth Banks and David Denman's character. The way you see that relationship just deteriorate throughout the story, they did a really good job with that. And it was emotional at moments. There's this one, there's some really nice and emotional character moments, especially with the mother. And it's this one moment, I'd say in the second act of the movie, and he finds out the truth about where he's from. And it's about 2 to 3 minutes of his mother, Elizabeth Banks, explaining to him about where he's come from and all of that. And it plucked on the heartstrings. I found it quite emotional. And so the heart is there, but it really as a film overall, it really just fails to really give that emotional punch that it was aiming for. But that's mainly down to the way they handled the main character, Brandon Breyer. So when it comes to performances, Elizabeth Banks was the highlight for me, but Jackson Dunn, who plays Brandon Breyer, the evil Clark Kent, I thought he was also really, really good. Like, he was all, the performance he gave felt very real again. It's just, unfortunately, we didn't really get to see too much. They didn't really delve too much into his character. Like, I felt they really sort of skimmed past this character and his decisions. So what you do see of this character, I liked, and I liked what the performance that Jackson Dunn was given when it came to this performance. I was really digging. Unfortunately, we just didn't see enough of this particular character. Direction. The film was directed by David Yarovsky. When it comes to the sort of the direction, the visual style, the way this film was shot was just very okay. It didn't really have a distinct style to it. At times, it just felt a little bit dull and bland when it came to the sort of the overall direction and visual style. And at times, it just felt like David Yarovsky was sort of imitating other directors like Zack Snyder. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that was intended, because this is a different take on that character, and the most recent Superman movies that we've had are Man of Steel by Zack Snyder. So I'm not entirely sure if that was intended, but overall, as a whole, this film really sort of lacked a distinct visual style from the way it was shot, from the way it looked. So overall, you know, when it comes to cinematography and direction, for me it was just sort of okay. It looked alright, but nothing really special. The horror moments are also the highlights, really. I mean, they are quite creepy and intense. I like the way in which the horror moments played out. There's this one moment that's in the trailers with the car, and you got Brandon Breyer, you know, a couple of feet away from this car, and it was an incredibly intense moment, but it also had a little bit of humour to it, and it's quite gruesome as well. So when it came to the horror aspect, I felt like they delivered. So when it comes to the human element, really, of this movie and its main character, Brandon Breyer, that was probably the most disappointing part for me, was his descent into evil, is sort of the reasonings to why he chooses to do what he does. And I just expected them to dig a little bit deeper and sort of delve a little bit more into the character. And for me, you had a blend of horror, some really nice character moments, but then when it came to sort of the main character, Brandon Breyer, is sort of his decisions or choices were very sort of just brushed upon, sort of skimmed past. And so I was a little bit disappointed with that. I was a little bit disappointed with how they handled its main character. So for the most part, for me, this film sort of worked. Only if they had actually achieved what they achieved with, you know, what Josh Trank, you know, with what Josh Trank did with Chronicle. And this film, Brightburn, actually reminded me a little bit of Chronicle, but Josh Trank did a much better job with that, because they're pretty similar movies, really. It is this kid, this child, or this man discovering that he's got a superpower. But what does this person choose to do with his superpower? Does he use it for good, or does he use it for bad? And Chronicle did a really good job with that. And Brightburn is essentially almost the same, very similar story. But unlike Chronicle, in which they really sort of dig deep into why the character chooses that path, Brightburn fails with that. So there is a heart at the centre of this movie. You know, for me personally, I found it at moments emotional, and that's mainly down to the fact that, you know, with my partner, we're about to go down this path of adoption, and I felt like that was a theme within this movie, which was adoption. And as a result, you know, there were really nice character moments within this movie that really hit home when it came to that, when it comes to adoption. I know the ideas are there. Unfortunately, it just really fails to deliver on those ideas and really give that emotional punch that it needed, that emotional weight that it needed. And this could have been, this film could have been so much better, but it wasn't terrible either. Like, I was a little bit disappointed with it, but overall, I really enjoyed the experience. And a lot of that is down to the fact that I could see what they were trying to do. And I think they did a really good job with the characters, Tori and Kyle Breyer, the couple, and they sort of descent into chaos, how their characters start from the beginning, and, throughout the journey of them, throughout the duration of the movie, and sort of how their characters and their relationships just deteriorate. And, Elizabeth Banks did a really good job with conveying her love for this child and what she was going through, conveying the experiences that this character was going through. I think Elizabeth Banks, like I said, was the highlight of this movie, and her story, along with her husband, Kyle Breyer, played by David Dunman. I think, for me, that was the best aspect of this movie. It's the aspect that I really liked. Unfortunately, when it came to the child, Brandon Breyer, and sort of the reasonings and the decisions and the character choices between that, involving that character, for me, was the letdown. But overall, it was enjoyable, but nothing really, really special, and I was slightly disappointed by it. But I would recommend it. I would recommend people checking this out. But overall, it was an enjoyable experience, and I will be giving Brightburn a 6 out of 10. are my thoughts and opinions on Brightburn. One of my anticipated movies of the year. A slight disappointment because it just doesn't quite deliver on its premise, its ideas, but overall I enjoyed it. What I want to know is, what did you guys think of Brightburn? Please let me know below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know below and let's get a discussion going. And thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And remember, if you want to follow just a geek from Wales who loves to talk about film, TV and just everything geeky, then why not hit subscribe?